Welcome, Shashi. Like, I absolutely am grateful to you because product management is a buzzword जिसके बारे में सब लोग जानना ज़रूर चाहते हैं, but not everybody knows how to get there, what's the roadmap, what are the skills like, कौन से courses करने चाहिए. There's so much that they want to ask. In fact, I had shared the list of questions with you that were posted in community, that were posted in Insta stories. They have so many questions, and I just hope कि इस live के through all of them get resolved. So thank you so much for coming on to the channel.
Thank you, Shweta, for inviting me here, and more than happy to be here. I think, and I completely resonate with the questions, first of all, because a few years ago, when I was starting out my journey of transitioning from an existing career path into product management, I think I faced all of these questions.
Yeah,
So to be able
absolutely.
to really think back and look into my journey, be able to pick out some of those highlights and share it with everybody, more than happy to do that. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. No, I absolutely wanted to pinpoint this part as well. Ki you transition first of all from engineering. So this is also me telling Shashi's background a little bit so that everybody gets to know a little bit about her journey, and then accordingly we'll move forward. So it was very interesting to see that you started off with engineering, and if I'm not wrong, in 2012 you graduated. And uske
Yes.
baad you had 3 years of work ex, and that too varied work ex. You started off with sales first, उसके बाद you moved on to business analyst position. उसके बाद you did your MBA from Vedica scholars, and we'll talk about Vedica scholars as well because of course that's a major position and a major part of your journey. But उसके बाद you moved on to product management roles, and currently you are working as a product manager at PayPal. So how did this mind shift really happen, this entire transition from engineering and then to sales and then to business analyst, then MBA and then to product management?
So, when I'm hearing you say this aloud, this sounds like a scripted journey, but trust me, it was nothing like it. I think this was, for me, discovery as it went on. But more importantly, I think it was about pushing myself to do different things, first of all. I think early in your careers, you do not have as much liability in terms of being fixed into one career path. That's where, like, when you graduate and you put yourself out in the job market, that's when you have the opportunity to be able to experiment with different skill sets, go and try and dip your fingers in different profiles to be able to actually see what you enjoy the most. So I think it began like that for me. And I remember I had a campus placement offer, but I was very keen to go and work in a startup. This is like almost more than a decade ago when startups were not that cool a thing to work at, more than a decade ago actually. So for me to do that was a little bit of unconventional thing in my own peer group, but I did that because I was really fascinated with an idea, and I was like, okay, let me go and try sales and see what it really does for my experience. So I started out with that. Then I think because of just other factors, we moved cities, so I had to move to another job. I took up a very safe tech based role in Pune. And then accordingly, as I was learning, I think, and you mentioned Vedica, I think that's where probably my pivot happened. So that's the big direction change that happened for my journey in terms of my thinking, in terms of my career choices. So someone who came from a very core technical background, for me to be able to expand my horizon into liberal arts, into management education, was a very deliberate choice in that sense because everyone does an MBA in the country. I think you do your engineering plus 2 years of MBA. That's such a set path for more than 60% of the our generation in that sense.
True.
And I think the feedback I was hearing from my friends who had done an MBA was that, oh, it feels like engineering part two. You get into the rut, you're preparing for entrances, you go through the course, you prepare for the placements, and then it's the same cycle repeating all over again. So for me, I think I did want to push myself to do something else, but my interest in business education was something which also kept me on track to make sure I was hunting for things which would satisfy both these paths. And Vedika sort of just fell into I think both these buckets. So I got lucky with the timing of it, I would say. So I was in that sense the founding batch when this was being started, and it came across my way. And I applied for it, and there's been no turning back since then from that mindset that got developed as a part of the program. But the topic that you're I think alluding to here is that how did this shift of
Yeah,
careers
correct.
happen. I think again, right? Like I graduated from Vedica in 2016. In the past 5 or 6 years, my focus has been to be able to first build skills than to build for a particular role. So I did not start out to become a product manager. I wanted to make sure that I was the best salesperson. I was someone who did great market research. I was somebody who understood user behavior. And again, right, like these were not planned out in a roadmap that I have to go and do one, two, three, four. Maybe looking back today, I can chronicle them that way. But for me, it was about picking up one skill and being able to really be good at it
And I
and
think
immerse myself in
and
that.
I think you were
And then,
mentioning,
yeah,
like when we talked the first time, that product management has a lot of sales in it, and a lot of
yeah,
sales skills are transferable to product management, and we'll
yes,
definitely get to that part as well. But I think I would want to ask a question here to the audience, because I have labeled this live stream as everything about product management or life in the day of a product manager. बट आई एम प्रिटी श्योर कि बहुत सारे लोगों को ये नहीं पता होगा कि प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट में एक्चुअली में होता क्या है, या प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट लाइक फॉर अ कॉलेज स्टूडेंट्स आई कैन थिंक ऑफ माई सेल्फ एज अ कॉलेज स्टूडेंट एंड आई एम प्रिटी श्योर कि नहीं पता होता है कि क्या होता है बेसिकली. सो लेट मी जस्ट आस्क देम इन द कॉमेंट्स इफ यू गाइज कैन टाइप आउट ऑफ 10 हाउ मच क्लैरिटी डू यू हैव कि प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट में क्या होता है. एंड 10 आउट ऑफ 10 मीन्स कि एकदम फुल क्लैरिटी है, एंड 1 आउट ऑफ 10 मीन्स कि कुछ नहीं पता है. सो लेट अस नो हाउ मच knowledge you have about product management, how much clarity do you have कि क्या होता है. एंड उसके बाद शशि, आई वुड रियली लव फॉर यू टू एक्सप्लेन टू देम इन वेरी सिंपलर टर्म्स, जो वो समझ
yeah,
पाएँ कि प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट का मतलब क्या है, या प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट में करना क्या होता है बेसिकली.
yeah.
So yeah, so Jeetu has said 5 out of 10. Let us know guys, what do you think कि product management का कितना clarity है आपको. Okay, someone has said -1000. And meanwhile, while you guys are typing this out, do like and share this stream so that it reaches out to many more students like you जिनको product management का idea नहीं है. That would be really really helpful. या सो आई थिंक फ्रॉम वॉट आई कैन सी मेजोरिटी लोगों को नहीं पता है, लाइक दे आर रैंकिंग 2, 3, 7. आई फील लाइक बहुत सारे लोगों को नहीं आइडिया होगा. सो शशि, लेट्स टेक अ वेरी सिंपल एग्जाम्पल, और लेट अस अज्यूम कि जैसे मुझे भी उतना क्लैरिटी नहीं है डिस्पाइट डूइंग MBA कि क्या होता है प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट. सो लेट अस नो फ्रॉम योर एक्सपीरियंस, अगर आपको किसी बेसिक पर्सन को समझाना हो कि प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट का मतलब क्या है, सो लेट अस नो हाउ यू वुड एक्सप्लेन दैट.
ओके, आई थिंक दिस इज अ वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन. पहली बात तो ये कि आई थिंक इंटरनेट पर इतनी ज्यादा वेरिड इंफॉर्मेशन है. So when you Google something, first of all, I think Google is everyone's best friend. So the first thing you do is, what does a product manager do, or
करेक्ट.
what does a day in a product manager's life look like? And आजकल जिस तरह की companies, roles, startups, multinationals, the definition of product management also has varied so much that I completely understand the confusion that comes with it. So there are organizations जहाँ पर सिर्फ execution related काम होता है कि आप काफी operational heavy काम कर रहे हैं, पर उसे आप product manager कह देते हैं. Growth product managers आजकल हैं. There's marketing product manager. So there are specific product managers also. But if I was to take a step back and just give you a complete holistic view of कि product management किस discipline को कहते हैं, and I wish now we start having formal disciplines like this, like how you do marketing, accounting, finance. उस तरह से I wish there is a formal discipline called product management, because it is nothing but a combination of different skill sets. It's almost like saying you're actually master of none but jack of all trades, in that sense that you are not a designer but you understand design. You're not a coder but you understand code. You're not necessarily a content person but you are a great communicator. So I don't know if I'm making this more layman and simple for everybody, but this is almost like being a mini CEO of a product.
So
So
let's take an
आपके हाथ
example
में,
कि उससे
yeah, so
if you
I'll give
can
you an
help me
example.
with an example, because
Correct.
then we can understand कि design वाला element कहाँ आता है, communication वाला
Correct.
element कहाँ आता है.
Correct. So let's do that. I think I'll pick up any one product that you
Yes.
guys use in
Yes.
your everyday life.
Yes.
So, it could be anything. It could be your payment apps. you guys use Google Pay, Phone Pay, Paytm, travel and commute apps, Ola and Uber, and then you also have I think food delivery apps. Let me pick up Swiggy for that matter. I think the most commonly used app for most of the people for ordering in food. Now, what would a product manager at Swiggy essentially do? Swiggy is a product which is existing for the core function of connecting restaurants to the end users जिन्हें वहां से खाना ऑर्डर करना है और इस पूरी प्रक्रिया को अरेंज करने के लिए जो भी आपका एक्सपीरियंस होगा so from the time you open the app on your mobile phone to you go and you add your address to you creating your profile, selecting the kind of restaurant you want to order, selecting the kind of food you want to order, put it into a cart, maybe use a discount coupon if available, give explicit instructions ki namak kam dalna or packaging nahi chahiye ya jo bhi hai. And then finally checking out to the entire transaction completing where they show you the tracking of the food is being picked up, has been on your way, 5 minutes away, delivered at your doorstep. The entire end-to-end journey from the time the user opens the first tab to receives the food. This is a user journey.
Okay, got it.
So we design every product for a user journey. As a product manager, you need to be able to define and understand कि user journeys क्या होती हैं और वो आपको तब समझ में आएगा जब आप समझेंगे कि आप प्रोडक्ट किसके लिए बना रहे हैं और क्या बना रहे हैं. So now I'm getting into a little bit of detail, but this is where your consumer behavior comes in. कि कोई भी इंसान अगर सुबह ब्रेकफास्ट ऑर्डर कर रहा है तो उसके माइंडसेट में 5-6 ऑप्शंस होंगे. They might not order biryani for breakfast. How do you make sure that in that morning time zone between 7 to 10, you only show up the options of nearby breakfast places? Or on a weekend, you show more discounted places. Or around a cricket match, you show more party-themed food items. Some of these things are constantly changing. How do I say, like cycles in the user journey that you have to keep thinking on your feet to be able to have the best experience for the user.
And
This
I
is what a
think
product
this
manager
is
does.
where the element of sales comes in, which you were talking about. Ki
Yes, and it's a lot of things actually. See, if I would simplify this, let's call it in 3 phases. There's discovery, there's design, and then there's delivery. Discovery is understanding all pain points for a user कि आपको चाहिए क्या, आपके करंट एक्सपीरियंस में प्रॉब्लम क्या है, आप किस प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व कर रहे हो. ये सारा इज अ पार्ट ऑफ योर डिस्कवरी विच इज वेयर योर रिसर्च, कंज्यूमर सर्वेस, स्पीकिंग टू पीपल, अंडरस्टैंडिंग कि कॉम्पिटिशन में क्या क्या है, बाहर जोमेटो क्या कर रहा है या उबर ईट्स एग्जिस्टेड एंड Amazon फूड एग्जिस्टेड, तो व्हाट वर दे डूइंग, हाउ वर दे डूइंग इट डिफरेंटली. दिस इज द डिस्कवरी फेज. Then is design. Once you've identified your problems and once you know ki this is what we are going to improve for somebody, we're going to make your checkout very seamless. Or otherwise, we will give you the option to cancel your order if you have mistakenly placed something else within the first 20 seconds of placing the order. So some of these things are done in the discovery stage where your requirements are defined. वहां से आप मूव करते हैं डिजाइन में. That's where your collaboration and stakeholder management comes into picture. Because now you have to work with engineers, with testers, with UI UX people, with not content creators, I mean like content writers, so more importantly, copywriters or communicators, people who do the written, which word needs to be put where, and put all of these together into a roadmap and then lead it to execution, which is the delivery stage. So you've done the discovery, you are in design, and then you're doing the delivery, which is when you're shipping it out. That now within this time frame, we need to make sure that all of these stakeholders are aligned together. Testing is done. You have done all rounds of checks in places, and then you have rolled it out to the user. So, which is why when I said that a product manager is usually the mini CEO of a product, you are responsible. Your accountability is very high. Your ownership is very low. Because to make that little change of a button, the developer, the coder is responsible. To change the color of an icon or color of the font, the designer is responsible. To change the written word there, maybe the content person would be helping you out and doing that. Now, what I'm giving you is probably the universal sort of framework. Of course, I think in organizations which are small little size and startups, you have to wear many hats. So sometimes you have to do all of these things yourselves. But the final say on anything that goes on the experience stays with the product manager. And probably, which is why such confusion around this, right? That what do you really do? You own all of this and you drive all of this. You work with all of these people, and this is where sales is. You're selling your idea and your vision to every person that you're working with. So if I'm
Correct.
working with you as a coder, if I'm not able to explain you my vision, I'm actually doing a poor job of it. So I have to sell my vision to every person that I work with to be able to get it to delivery. And hence the whole journey.
Got it.
Long answer, but I hope that
No, no,
helps.
definitely. I think this was much needed because इससे थोड़ा clarity मिलता है when you especially give an example which we use day to day. तो जैसे Zomato का case या Swiggy का case, I think it becomes much clearer this way. Another thing here, I think this question was also asked by Sunil, if I'm not wrong. He did ask, कि, and might sound silly coming from me, I don't really know the answer to it, but क्या जनरली प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर्स टेक या सॉफ्टवेयर्स के साथ ही डील करते हैं और कैन समवन ऑल्सो बी अ प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर ऑफ लेट्स से अ टैंजिबल प्रोडक्ट?
No, you do not need to be an engineer or you do not need to be a coder to be a product manager. In fact, some of the best product managers in global tech companies come from the background of user behavior or are psychology students who have done that in some form or the other. So,
So I
because the,
think this would definitely help a lot of non-engineers as well, and this could
yes,
probably be another question that you can take up. But here, what I was trying to understand is कि जैसे इस समय we took an example of an app, Zomato or Swiggy. But can someone also be a product manager of a tangible, a physical product? Or when we
yes,
talk about product managers, we only talk about tech or
yes.
softwares.
Yeah. I think that's because in the recent few years, the definition of the role has surrounded itself around tech products. But in general, if you look at it, it's about owning an idea. You are essentially owning one idea. It can be a physical product, it can be a software product, and it could be a simply an experience-based journey. So you're essentially defining all of these things together and you're shipping that out. So you can definitely be a product manager of a physical product as well. I mean, you have a phone and you could be a product manager responsible
Got it.
for designing of this and getting it out. And the same entire same, mindset would follow to that.
I'm glad you said the phone. You said phone because there's a person called Yash on our channel who put out almost 13, 14 questions around product management, and there are so many of them. One of them being ki, do you earn enough as a product manager to be able to earn an iPhone the very first month, like by your salary? So yeah, I mean he has a lot of questions, but the one that I'm gonna take up from his list of questions is that what are some of the things that you do in your day as a product manager, just so that people can understand कि आपका work life balance कैसा होता है, like how hectic is it to be a product manager?
Okay, wow. I don't know how to answer this in a straight yes or no question. Do I have a work-life balance? I don't think if I can answer this, there's no yes or no to this. It's really up to how you manage your work. It boils down to your time management more than the job's requirement in itself. That's the first thing. Second thing, I think as a role, it does demand a lot of presence of mind beyond the just the calls and stuff. So what I do in an everyday on an
Yeah.
everyday basis is I work a lot with engineering teams, which is where my delivery part is, right? Like where I've already had some work which has been strategized, which has been put into a roadmap to get that out. So there's a lot of execution heavy focus on my everyday work. Then there's a lot of strategy that is involved. And again, strategy is such a broad term, but when I break it down, it is into planning, it is into road mapping things to be able to visualize what my first 3 months of this year are going to look like. These are my prioritized items. So the skill to be able to prioritize things, I think, is the most important responsibility for a product manager. So a lot of planning, a lot of delivery, and a lot of brainstorming with stakeholders. So with my designers and content team, I'm constantly taking their feedback, going and working on the drawing board again, coming back to them. A lot of back and forth on thinking process, defining process, and being able to chart out a plan that can then be taken for delivery. So all of these things happen in loop because you're not working on one thing, you're working on 35 things at one time. So and they all are at different stages. So you can imagine one starting point, but everything is at moving at different pace. So there's a lot that goes on for sure. So it's hectic, but can you create a work-life balance? For sure. I think that boils to each individual. And I think I have learned that the hard way. So I'm much better at it now. And I think experience will teach you that, honestly. But yeah, that's about, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. And in fact, I
It's
do
nothing
have
to
a
do with the role. Yes.
yeah. I do have a follow up here because I think a lot of what I do in my day to day life, or even when I was working, I think a lot of it has to do with how we manage our time during our MBA journeys. So, do you think your MBA played any role in helping you manage this particular role? This also helps someone understand if an MBA would help them become a product manager.
Yeah. So I do think some frameworks that I learned from the classroom have become my life frameworks. So they were taught to me as a part of the curriculum, but I've gone ahead and adopted them in my life as just making my life easy. So it's no more just limited to my work, but also how I live my life. I think some of those things really help. And I was talking about prioritization, that the art of prioritization is one of the core skills that's required for a product manager. And people will ask, what do you really mean by, prioritization? How do you prioritize something over the other? On a given day, I have at least 100 requests from so many different people that हमें ये चाहिए, हमें ये change करना है, हमें वो करना है, हमें. How do I know which is more important? How do I rank them? And how do I go ahead with one by one as compared to going at everything? So this is something which and this happens, I'm sure, in your everyday life also, in personal life as well. सब कुछ एक साथ ही करना है, तो how do you do that? And I remember, at least in our classroom, we had some of these things wherein um, I'm sure, like even you must have studied the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
That what do you really want, what do you really need, what is a good to have, what is a must have, to be able to understand those things, which is such user behavior core. And it's about your own thinking and it's about your own wants and needs as well. If you're able to define and understand that and use those same principles at work, I think it makes your life easier. Similarly, on time management, I remember studying about. I think we were taught this in one of our workshops, the Pomodoro technique, which is, it's very popular. I think there are a lot of people now talking about it. But how do you do short intervals of high focus work and get a lot more done as compared to, the whole day being in front of laptop and not being able to get that output done. So, and as you at least progress in your career, you start realizing that you only have 24 hours a day. So how do you maximize that for your own personal gain is being able to make sure that you finish some of these things in a high focused manner. And I definitely go back to, I think, some of the teachings that I had at Vedica to be able to bring that back into practice. And I don't limit that to work. So it's, I think, all encompassing in life.
I think whenever I've made a video on Vedica scholars on the channel, and this is for anyone who is aspiring to do an unconventional MBA, like who wants to like get out of their comfort zone, learn those softer skills that Shashi is also talking about. मुझे हमेशा ऐसा लगता था whenever I talk to a Vedica scholar कि you are all so confident, bold women, you are industry ready. It just always felt very very transformational, like your entire journey. So could you just walk us through some of those elements, like especially the program that happens? I think it's the shadow program. So I've like listened about it from so many people, but could you relate what you learned there with what you're doing right now? Like how does it really help?
So I can maybe speak about one of the biggest differentiators between Vedika and other MBA programs and how that has played a part in my life. Um, I think business education in the country is one of the most sought after disciplines. So you know what a traditional MBA looks like. And why does a Vedika differ there? And what impact does that difference have? So maybe I can talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, sure.
Um, so we had four tracks which ran through the 18 months for us. There was business foundations, which is your usual MBA stuff,
MBA.
marketing, finance, the subjects that go into it. Then we had communications. I think the focus on communication skills, which is so underrated in our entire education system. And by that, I mean not just being able to communicate verbally, to be able to put, sentences together and speak in English. I think people often confuse speaking English well as being
Yes.
communicating, being a
Yes.
good communicator. So communication has nothing to do with English. It is more to be able to do कि मेरे सामने जो इंसान बैठा है उसे मैं अपनी बात समझा पा रही हूँ कि नहीं,
Yes.
और जो मैं कहना चाह रही हूँ वही आप समझ रहे हैं या आप कुछ और समझ रहे हैं. एट द सेम टाइम आप जो कह रहे हैं क्या मैं उसे सुन रही हूँ और क्या मैं उसी तरह से सुन रही हूँ जो आप मुझे समझाना चाह रहे हैं. सो इट इज एज मच एज अबाउट स्पीकिंग एंड लिसनिंग. I can only be a good communicator if I'm responding to what you're saying, uh, and response will happen only when I'm listening to you properly in terms of what you want to convey. So I think that focus on listening, on reading, on writing, and writing again, right? Like before speaking, how do you make sure that your thoughts are structured? How do you make sure that the answers that I'm giving to you right now are actually answering the questions that you're asking? So some of these things I think they teach you as a mindset during Vedika. And that focus on communication skills, however late that happens in our academic journey. I wish it had happened for me in school, but it happened to me after undergrad. But I think that is truly transformative. And the second more, I think that no one is doing probably, maybe ISB or a couple of other business schools, but is there's a equally important track of personal growth that is driven throughout the 18 months of the program. And what I mean by personal growth is there's a lot of self-reflection, there's a lot of focus on being able to take a step back, pause, think on what are you doing, why are you doing, where do you want to go, and being able to take action on that, being able to continuously assess yourself. We are so used to the examination system that one semester done, exams done, and move to next semester, then next semester, then next you have 48 subjects to finish in 24 months or the usual programs. And the mindset is so different when it comes to education that there is nobody who's telling you to why don't you take a pause and think about what do you want to do, where do you want to go ahead next, or whatever you've learned so far, how do you think you can take this forward for your career journeys, or what can you build upon this to go ahead. So that personal growth track, I think, is truly remarkable in terms of having a very different approach to learning as compared to just reading and excelling at exams. So definitely, I think communications and the personal growth track have been most important from at least my personal journey. And I do know for a lot of my friends from my batch as well. And I was the first batch. There are, I think, some 7, 8 batches now already graduated, and you can see that as a part of journey of most of the scholars who've graduated from the program.
Yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely. I think communication was like one underlying skill that I saw every person, every graduate had, and like it was polished very well. That's why the question as well. But apart from communication, if I have to ask you about product management, what other skills? And I think this particular question was asked by so many people. Um, I'm pretty sure that many of them wanted to know this. So there's Ankita, there's Sid, there's Sridhar, Arijit, Afzal. So many people ask this question that what are all the skills that are required, whether it's technical skills, soft skills, and in fact if you could help us with some resources as well, like for example someone is currently in college or they're in some other job and they want to move to product management, what skills should they build, what courses should they do, should they do internships or not, like let us know everything that they need in order to become a product manager.
Okay, so let me take this question. The last question that you asked, I'll answer that first. So, people who are in college and people who are already working professionals, if they want to transition or start their career in
Yes.
this, how do they go about it? I would highly recommend anyone who's studying right now to not start with product management. Start with developing one core skill set. That skill set could be anything. You could be a great UI UX person, you could be a great writer, you could be a great researcher, You could be a great coder. Any one core skill set, please master that. You could be a great salesperson for that matter. Which again, like I think I spoke about the Swiggy example, and I told you where each of these skills come into picture. So for all young graduates and currently studying, the crowd which is currently in college, highly recommend to start out with developing a skill set which will make you at least 1 year or 2 year down the line be able to say, okay, I understand design. Let me now step into this. You cannot become a owner of a product without understanding, what happens at the ground level. One thing you need to be able to master. It could be any of these. You don't have to own all of them. The second thing for the people who are already in careers right now, working professionals who want to
Yeah.
transition to this. If I was to, break it down to hard skills and soft skills, um, let me just, okay, so you don't need to go and learn languages, but if you can learn structures, if you understand logic, I think that is a big help in everyday work. So I don't code, but I have engineers who walk me through what I have asked them to design every day. And if I don't understand the logic on which it has been built, then they can take me for a ride and they can simply say, oh, this is how this will happen and done. And I will simply be like, okay. And if it doesn't work, then I'm accountable for it. But if I understand logic, I will be able to break down what they are saying and catch pointers that, oh, but what happens if this was not covered? What happens, the edge cases or other cases which have not been covered in that thinking? So develop a logical thinking mindset. And I think the best way to do that is to be able to do some courses on, um, some fundamentals of programming, where they don't teach you coding, they teach you the mindset. They teach you very basics of structures, loops, functions. Just do that. That's, I think, a great help in everyday functioning. Second is, please, there are so many free resources available on UI UX. You don't have to go and be, a designer who's doing stuff on Adobe or like, designing files, but understand design principles. And that is more about a mindset than about the actual core skill set. You will work with designers, but to be able to have the design thinking mindset is an absolutely valuable asset. This will be proved to you when you are in interviews. The questions that will be asked to you will be to check if you have that mindset. So that's definitely there. I think another great example could be, there are so many, the startup scene in India is so booming. There's every day, I mean, if you guys watch Shark Tank, I think that's the latest thing in the season. When you listen to these pitchers talk about their products in a startup pitch at Shark Tank, you're thinking about how they went about solving a problem. That is the discovery part I was talking about. Then they're talking about what they designed for it. What is the product? That's the design part of it. And then they talk about how are they taking it to the user, which is the delivery of it. So discovery, design, delivery, again. Some of these things, when you start listening, reading case studies, I'm using Shark Tank because that just came in my mind, the most recent one, but so many resources available on YouTube also. So I think now I'm jumping to the first part of the question where I'm trying to give you listings and
Yeah.
some books I can
I
recommend.
think
There is
some
a
people
book.
have even said that can you name some resources? So I think that will really help if you could give some names of books or
Yeah,
of YouTube channels or courses that they could. I think
yeah,
I know of one particular course. I'll definitely link it after this
yeah,
session as well. That's there on LinkedIn for product managers. But let us
yeah.
know of more resources. I'm sure they're like most eager to know this part.
So I'm a big fan of YouTube. I think more than any other online learning platform, my biggest learnings have come from YouTube. And there's a YouTube channel called the Product School. I don't think they charge anything. I mean, they have paid courses as well and stuff, but there's a lot of free content available, and you'll start enjoying it. That's the thing with about product management, that it is so problem solving driven, that it is so much focused on solving a core need or a core experience that you start enjoying episode after episode. So I would definitely like, and I'm not, this is not a sponsored, like, I don't think they know I'm speaking about them, but great content on building a product management mindset.
Okay.
So product school, I have learned a lot from Twitter. I'm not on any social media, but I think the one social media that I've used for my product management work has been Twitter. I think one way to approach is, why don't you identify the products that you use and you like very much? Go and follow the top leadership from that. Follow thought leaders in the space. I can think of Doshi, who often posts only about product management and solving a particular issue, or how his approach was to certain principles. I think some of those threads, some of those discussions, that's a platform where there's no distraction. It's only, and of course, the algorithm works in such a way that you control your feed. So make sure that you are subscribing or following the topics that you really want to learn about. So you'll keep getting, information more related to that. So brands, creators, thought leaders on Twitter, definitely. There's another, I think a startup again called Product Board. It's simply called the Product Board. That's it. Which also does really good content on it, again, across YouTube and Twitter. There's a podcast, which I think, again, like podcasts, I enjoy reading and following entrepreneurship. So this podcast called This Week in Startups. And if you listen to that, you'll see that even though it talks about startups, it's talking about a lot on problem solving, on startup skills. And that's where a lot of product thinking also comes into picture. So there's a lot of stuff out there. I think the few listings that I've given you between YouTube and between Twitter, I think are my favorite. If you want to start out with a book, there's a book called Hooked, H-O-O, Hooked by Neer Eyal. I think that's a great book to start with. There are many other more complicated books and more advanced books, of course, but this is a great beginner level book. Again, it talks about how do you build habit forming products.
Correct.
How do you build things that make people come back and reuse and fall into that loop? So, which is again, breaking down into user behavior. Why is it that when you open your Instagram, you cannot stop scrolling through the reels? You're constantly and sometimes even mindlessly doing that because it's become a habit for you. So I think some of that is really fun to read in these books. And let me know if there's more if you need. I can probably send across a list later.
Yeah,
But
sure.
between books, podcasts, and YouTube has been my go-to, I think, for learning.
Sure, absolutely. I think those resources would really help them like prepare themselves. We can collate all those resources and add it as a pinned comment after the session ends so that they can access
Sounds
it
good.
freely. And
Yeah.
another question here that a lot of people are also asking in the chat, as I can see, is that can non-engineers make it to product management? And I think you were touching
Of
upon this
course.
initially.
Yes,
I would
yes.
really love to know that. I think मेरे को इतना खुद को misconception लग रहा है because when you say कि you have to deal with coders, developers, like I am scared how would I deal with them if I don't know coding. So as a non-engineer, when you even said that you need to know the basic structures, मुझे लगता है मुझे structures का मतलब भी नहीं पता है. So how does a non-engineer shape themselves in a way that they're able to deal with the people who know this technical stuff? So what should be the pathway for a non-engineer in this case?
Okay. I think I will repeat probably what I said about that. Whether you're an engineer or a non-engineer, make sure that you have worked across some skill set before. Make sure you understand something about design, sales, communication, these core skill sets. And I mean, I am a big proponent of everyone starting their career with sales because I think it teaches you a lot. But this applies across the board. It doesn't have to be an engineer or a non-engineer. But specifically, if you feel that you have that confidence, that you need to build a bigger confidence in how do I deal with engineers, you have to know that you are not telling them how to code. You're telling them what you want, what experience you want to see. So the translation of that into technical is their job. Your job is to be able to communicate your vision well to them. So there is actually, and what I meant by structures was I think it's every day. There are more nuanced roles called managers who are now responsible for driving execution very, very at detailed level. I think that's where some of these things are more helpful. And I think this happens with any job. The more you learn any skill set, any tool, for example, if you're a management consultant and if you can design great presentations, that's always a plus point. If you're a business analyst and you're good with Excel and you can do your pivot tables like this, it's always a great skill set. So any other tool will always help you. But at the core of it, it's not mandatory for you to know coding or anything to do with that to start a career in product management. What is definitely important is great communication skills and being a I think people person, maybe I'm not phrasing that right. Being able to work with people, being able to get people to work with you. I think that definitely is very important. Yeah.
And
So
you
your people
mentioned,
skills and your sales skills are the most important.
yeah, I think so. When you say that structures are not important or the technical side is not as important as those basic skills, so what you're saying is that without having them, also, if you have the other requirements, the other skills, you
You
can
can start
enter.
out,
Yes, you can
yes, and then you
enter
learn
and
on
you
the
learn
job.
on the job.
You learn on the. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying it's
Yeah,
not mandatory
not
for
mandatory.
you to
Yes.
start. Yes.
Another question here, since you mentioned or you recommended the freshers not to directly start off with product management role, you told them
Yeah.
to have work experience. So here I have a question that what if someone decides not to get work experience but get an MBA instead? Can an MBA not be an entire substitute but be a close substitute to having that work ex? So to simplify it for everybody, what I'm trying to ask Shashi here is कि अगर आप कॉलेज के बाद जॉब नहीं करते हो, आप डायरेक्टली MBA कर लेते हो और उसके बाद आप प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर बनना चाहते हो, कैन दैट बी अ गुड पाथ टू टेक?
Okay. So can that be a good path to take? Again, right? I think the way to answer this probably for me is that an MBA cannot be MBA is something which gives you an academic exposure to the knowledge and to the information that exists about different streams, and it exposes you to think differently. What you can do is you can utilize the MBA duration into doing projects, into showing, in your CV, there has to be something that shows that this person has thought about something, built something, and delivered something, worked with five other people to be able to make that happen. Where I can read that you were not just a student in the classroom. You did a group project where you had to work with six other people to make sure a timeline was met, and you presented the final thing. Or you interned at a startup and you drove a marketing campaign for them. Or you worked with a, I don't know, with a bank, and you were taking customer surveys and feedback, and you collated all that feedback and prepared a report for them and sent. What I'm trying to say is translate the classroom experience into a saleable skill or something
Practical.
which me as a recruiter or me as somebody who's on the other side of the table can see that this person understands what, when you study, let's say, five principles of marketing or Porter's forces or some of those things, you've put that into action in some project or in some internship or in a document or in a report or in any format where I can know that you understand how this can be done. I think that's maybe a way to think about it. But I would not, I think, say that these are, substitutes to each other. This is definitely an alternative that you can look at in terms of, okay, I did not have, hardcore 5 years experience, 3 years experience into a particular thing, but I jumped into an MBA. This is how I utilized my MBA well. And then you can start off your careers in whichever field you want to.
Could you share what you did during your MBA? That would be something related to a
Wow.
practical project or
That was a
how you
while
did
ago.
it. Like a lot of
That was
people
a
who are watching might be MBA aspirants, so that might give them an insight as well.
Okay, so one of the things at Vedica, what we had was a shadow CEO module.
Yeah.
I think again, it was great opportunity for us to be able to shadow women leaders across sectors in India, and I think now they do that abroad as well. But one of my projects, in fact, the core project that I followed for a couple of months was I was working with a renewable energy firm called Renew Power, um, and my core project there was to design, uh, as a part of their CSR responsibility. So I joined them as an intern. And while I was shadowing my mentor there, one of the projects that was given to me to do a ground research on some of the challenges faced by the community members where these plants were installed. So usually, solar power plants or wind power plants are far off from the main city. either like in a village or really, really far off land in the part of the geography. So, how do you create a sustainable ecosystem for the villagers who are there, who are able to, provide good education, provide healthcare facilities with the low cost income groups that are there? So this was one big problem statement, and I remember working on it and creating like a model of self-help groups, that how you can use women who are mothers and who are homemakers to utilize their afternoon time into skilling themselves, generating extra income. It could come from like things that are useful in the villages. It could be stitching, it could be whatever. So basically, I mean, I'm getting into detail. The idea that I was driving was, how do you create the existing time that people have into more self-help and teaching each other communities. So just managing people's time and skill sets. I think I created that and I presented that. And I remember a few years down the line, I actually got a note from my mentor about how that had successfully taken shape. And I was of course proud and overwhelmed, but like, yeah. So that was my project. Again, it had nothing to do with what I'm doing today, but the skill sets that were put into it, whether it was reading up, researching, putting together a concept note, designing elements for it, putting together an entire plan for it. That's what I do. That same mindset is what I utilize now as well when I'm making a roadmap for my next quarter, or putting together a vision document for my product or my offerings. So yeah.
So that's like the transferable skills that you learned in a
Yes.
project that was
Yes.
different from what you do, but still helps you with
Yes.
your day-to-day
Yes.
life and job. Yeah, I think I've asked the WorkX related question as well. Now I'm gonna do a rapid fire, and this is
Mhm.
going to be to check suitability. So let's say somebody is currently in college or is an early working professional, and they don't know whether or not they should get into product management. So I'm going to ask you some questions that you'll have to, of course, answer quickly without taking time, because this will help them
Yeah.
understand about the suitability of this particular role. So let me ask you the first question. Do you think that product managers travel a lot?
No.
That's a win-win for people who don't want to travel a lot.
Yes.
Okay, so how many stakeholders are you managing at any given point of time? By stakeholders, I mean
Oh
how
my
many
God.
people?
Many. I can't put a number to it. On an everyday basis, it's easily 25 to 30.
Is
Yeah.
learning
At my
English
position, I think it's that. But then, of course, as you grow more senior, it grows even more higher. But 25 to 30 any day. So it's
is learning English important to be a product manager?
no, but it's helpful. It's not mandatory, but it's definitely helpful.
On a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 is the highest, how much creativity do you need to become a product manager?
Wow. How do I put a number to it? You
Just
can't define creativity in numbers, but I think problem solving mindset is what I would call it than creativity. But yeah, definitely more than seven.
okay. And how
Not a rapid
much?
answer, but
Yeah, no,
yes.
no, it does. And how much is the weightage of academic marks? Like, this is the most important question a lot of people have. How important are academic marks, good academic marks, to become a product manager?
You don't need to be a topper to be a product manager. That's my straight up answer for that. And at the same time, I'm not endorsing that please do not get good marks.
Yeah.
They are always helpful, but you don't need to be a topper to be a good product manager.
That will help them a lot with suitability regarding the product management part as well. But I would also like to check with you regarding suitability for Vedica scholars, because I've mentioned on the channel a lot of times that it's a great program to go for, and many of them
Yeah.
who are watching might be thinking कि MBA के लिए वहाँ पे अप्लाई करें या नहीं. So if you could also share your experience कि किसके लिए वो suitable है, and also share किसके लिए suitable नहीं है, so that they can make an informed choice.
Yeah. I think किसके लिए नहीं है, let me tell you that first. If you're somebody who's looking for a very straight cut, that I want to spend the next 15 years of my job in 15 years of my career in one job, keep doing this, and I'm happy doing that. I think please don't go to Vedica. That's not what this is for. It's for suitable best for people who are looking to build a career than just being in jobs. The difference between jobs and career is where probably Vedika comes into picture. Career is a long-term thinking approach where you are thinking about it deliberately, about building skill sets, mastering them, and then moving from one stage to another stage and growing in a particular direction. Jobs could simply be just switching between getting a salary and just, having that sustained income. So if you have a career driven mindset, Vedika is for you. Second, if you are someone who really wants to pivot in your current situation, and by pivot I mean you have been doing engineering, but maybe you realize that this wasn't as fun as I thought it would be, or maybe this is not meant for me, and I'm great at something else. I'm great at speaking to people, or I enjoy a lot doing debates, or being able to work on Excel, or to be able to any number crunching, or any of these things. When you start recognizing that for yourself and you need a pivot in your career, in your educational journey, I think Vedika is a great step for that as well. People who are looking to explore liberal arts, and I would highly encourage people to go and read up more about what liberal arts education in India is, what's the importance on a global level. It's not that focused in our current education system. I think there's a lot more that can be done, but it's definitely something which is globally very, very sought after as a skill set. So the best of the companies, the best of the roles, look out for individuals who have some form of exposure to liberal arts in their work experience or education. So that definitely is a big draw. And most importantly, if you're a young woman who has dreams and who wants to be able to go out and build a great network of working professionals, of women for yourself for a lifetime, the best place to be. I think some of my best friendships have come from the program, and the lifelong relationships to be. And yeah, many reasons I think I've listed now. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience as well. I think it will help someone make the right choice. I've been like
Yeah.
telling them to reach out to more people on LinkedIn. I feel that really helps, know more about any program. So thank you for sharing your experience. I think I would love to end this podcast or this discussion with one final question. Abhi, the scenario around is changing so much. You don't know if COVID is going to be back. You don't know how the situation is going to be, and it's being told that workplace में थोड़ा सा challenges होंगे. So, what would be your suggestion to current college students, early working professionals who are trying to switch to product management or in general trying to switch? What would you generally recommend someone to do at this point?
Uh, I think three things. First, have a continued learning journey for yourself. Your education and your degree is not the end all of the entire experience. In fact, you're going to be surprised that what you've studied in the classroom doesn't translate into workplace. So find the skills that you need for the jobs. So when you're talking about product managers, if you are really driven to enter the space or enter the discipline of product management, start learning those skills. And I've spoken about research, I've spoken about user behavior, UI, UX, understanding basics of coding. There is so much content available on YouTube, on Google. Start doing small courses. Start doing the free content. You don't have to go and pay and enroll yourself into like expensive programs. But start upskilling yourself is the first thing. Second, while the job market is a little, tight, I would say right now, I think the good thing is that the Indian startup space is still booming and there's a lot of good opportunities there. See if as students or if as working professionals, you can get short gigs, you can get internships, you can get projects. And what this will do is push you out of your comfort zone to be able to uh, actually apply what you are studying and learning in these skills into a project, into a deliverable. So the second core thing is, of course, to have this. And third is be active in terms of, and when I say active, be aware and be well informed about what's happening in the space. And that's why probably I spoke about Twitter and YouTube and podcasts. I think that consumption is also keeping you aware of how the space is growing. So, first is upskilling yourself. Second is making sure that you find internships and you're constantly on lookout for projects. And third is being aware of what's happening in the space and updating yourself. So, yeah, I think these three things.
Thank you
for
so
sure.
much. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I would also like to add another podcast that I've been like hearing these days. I think it's really helpful. It's called The First Principles. It's on Spotify.
Yes.
I think it's
Oh, yes.
amazing. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think you
No, it's
guys
a
should
great one. I mean,
definitely listen to
I
it.
think I finished all episodes long ago, but it's again a thinking mindset. How do
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
think in first principles?
Yeah.
And one of the core principles that they teach you in problem solving, that always go back to first principles. And what is a first principle? I think Elon Musk used to talk about it a lot,
Hmm.
but a great recommendation, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for joining in, Shashi. I'm pretty sure that this entire conversation will open their minds to different perspectives, will also help them learn a lot more about product management going forward. And I think it's gap hai society mein that people probably don't have access to the entire information. So I would share your LinkedIn profiles link as well in the description. I'll also share Vedika's description, the video that we made. Also Vedika का second round of application आज शुरू हुआ है. So in case anyone wants to check out, the link is already there in the description. Go check it out. And बाकी के जितने भी resources हमने बात भी की है या Shashi would like to share others as well, we'll put it in the pinned comment and description for you guys to learn as much as possible, because like Shashi said, अगर आप सीखते रहोगे only then you can take up what lies ahead. Nobody really knows कि कल को कैसे चीज़ें shape होंगी. So embrace that and prepare yourself for that. So yeah,
yeah,
thank you so much again, Shashi, for joining in, and hope you all have a good night's sleep as well as you have ample resources to work on now to kickstart your journey. Thanks,
yeah.
guys.
Happy to help. Thanks, Shweta.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye.